Hi everyone and welcome to Emergination. My name's Susanna Westwood, I'm the CEO and founder of Emergination. We're here today on our third workshop, which I'm so excited about. Thank you so much for coming to join us. We really appreciate you taking the time, and as always, this is your time to get focused on your career, really focus on what you want to do. Take that time out to actually go, I actually want to get somewhere with my music career. So today the focus is on music industry. We've got a great guest, which I will introduce to you in a short while. And that we're going to be live here today to actually answer your questions. So please feel free to tweet in. So it's at Emergination, or you can Facebook us, and any messages or any questions that you have either to me or to our guest about Emergination, please feel free to message in. And Facebook is www.facebook.com/Emergination. So hopefully you'll be able to kind of get your questions answered if you've got anything about the music industry. So we're here today, first and foremost, in the Warsaw Studio School with a great team of people who are helping us. And we're actually getting a lot of students and graduates who are actually coming to help, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So I'm really thankful to them today. So that's the first and foremost. But before I carry on gossiping and we talk to Paul, just to kind of let you know, Emergination is live. So if you've had an email with a code, which should have gone out at 8 o'clock last week, which is very exciting. Some guys have signed up. We've had a great response from you guys. We've had lots of emails in, which is great. If you haven't put your profile on yet, guys, I would suggest that you try and do that as quick as possible because the places will run out very quickly. So make sure that you go onto emergination.com, register, put your code in, and then you can actually get access, put a profile up. And what's going to be great is our industry professionals are on board to actually look at your stuff and actually see what you've got on there. So they can come and actually see who you are and look at your profile, look at your music, look at your art, whatever it is that you're selling, and actually look and take sort of an interest in what's happening with the emerging artists. So this is a way that you can get your stuff out there. All right, so hopefully that's really helpful. If you have any questions, please email us at info@emergination.com and we can answer any queries that you have. So I'm very excited because I get to talk, not just interview, but I get to talk to one of my closest friends, Mr. Paul Reid. Hi. How you doing?
Oh well, how are you?
I'm good. I know you're not liking me right now because I'm making you talk. Paul is used to being behind a guitar, I should say.
Yeah, in the background.
Yeah, so this is like your worst nightmare.
It definitely is.
Sorry. It's all good. It's all about helping.
It's only because it's you.
I know. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's all right.
So first and foremost, what we're going to do is we're just going to probably just talk about your experience of being a professional session musician.
Okay.
We just want to kind of find out a bit about who you are. I know I've got a couple of questions, and some of the guys have already been sent some questions in, and obviously they're going to be tweeting and Facebook, and so be prepared for a lot of questions. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
All right. So first and foremost, really, we just want to hear about, your experience, how you became a professional session musician, because I know you've toured all over the world, which has been, and I love hearing about your story. So, yeah, do you want to just kind of start from the beginning of how it all happened and who you've worked with and what you do and that kind of stuff?
Well, I guess if you want to go right back to the beginning,
well, not quite the beginning, but just a bit.
Well, I kind of, I started off playing basically in church, really, and my biggest thing at that time was just to be on the church worship band. Yeah. And I remember watching the other musicians and being just like in awe of them, because they could, put songs together and perform every Sunday. I was just waiting for my time. Yeah. And obviously, things transpired, and like I went on to the worship band and I started playing, and it was all good. I started off as a drummer.
I actually didn't know that. Seriously?
Yeah, I actually started off playing drums.
Okay.
And, it's something that I always wanted to do. I just wanted to play drums. And my father became a minister in church, and he got transferred to another church in a different area. And, he'd promised to buy me a drum kit for my birthday. And instead, he brought me a guitar. He says, "We're going to the shops, I'm going to buy you a guitar." I'm like, I want a drum kit. But there's no music in church. So, it was kind of like, well, I need you to learn to play the guitar so we can have some kind of music in church. And I was gutted, I really was. But I had the guitar sitting down for months, not doing anything as you do. And I don't know, just one day I just picked it up, and I found out it was actually quite easy for me to learn to play, and it just kind of developed from there. I started getting better at what I did via practice and stuff, and people were kind of asking me to come and play in their band. We had a lot of bands in our school and around the area that we lived. Everybody was into music then, into playing live music, which was great. And I got the opportunity to play with a few different people, and like slowly I was getting better and better. My desire to play, and perform was getting more and more intense. And I remember, sitting watching, Top of the Pops back in the day. For some of you out there, yeah, well, there's a lot of people out there that know what Top of the Pops is, and back then there was a lot of, musical programs on TV. And, I remember watching those things and thinking, oh, God, I really would love to be doing that as a career, and not thinking that, way down the line, it's actually happened for me, and also, just kind of watching artists, on that show and thinking, God, I'd love what I would do to play with Prince, or what I would do to play with this person or that person. And, not knowing that later on down the line, it actually happens, and I feel very fortunate in the fact that I'm able to do what I do for a career. Obviously, I got introduced into the session scene by a guitarist friend of mine who was already doing it. He was based in London, and he would call me for gigs. He'd be like, look, I can't do this gig, can you come down and cover me? I'd be like, yeah, no problem. Come down and cover him. These were like regular kind of, commercial gigs that you do, singing at a wedding or whatever. And, surely, along the line, he got me to come and depth for him on a proper gig, what I called a proper gig, which is a pop gig. He says, look, I'm on tour. I've been given this, contact. They want me to play for a girl called Michelle Gale, but I can't do it. Are you around? And I was like, yeah. And Michelle Gale, she was quite famous at the time.
She was, I remember Michelle Gale.
Yeah, because she was like doing East End.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You want to do a performance now?
No.
Well, anyway, she needed a guitarist, and I went down. I didn't have to do an audition or anything.
That's awesome.
It was short. It was just based
Word
on
of mouth,
recommendation, and what the guy knew about me as a musician. And I went down, I did the session, and it was fine. I had a great time. I ended up working with Michelle for, a good 6-7 months. And it was from then I started networking and meeting different people. People began to know who I was. Suddenly I was, not just this guy from Birmingham, but I was part of, the session scene, if you want to call it that, in London. And, through that, other things kind of developed, and you start working with different artists, based on your experiences and based on people see you working with such and such artists, and you do a great job, and they'll recommend you to do something else.
That's true.
But that was my kind of beginning into the session scene.
It's amazing just to hear. Sorry to interrupt, but it's to hear you talk about like it's about not only you being really good at what you do, because obviously at that point you'd proven yourself to this guy who was kind of giving you work, basically, that you were excellent at what you did in the sense of you know your craft. But then because you had this professional attitude and you just went and did stuff, and you, in some ways, you were faithful with the small stuff in the small gigs, and you just treated them, from what I can hear,
Absolutely.
And that's what got you the next step in. Is that correct?
Well, absolutely. And while you're on that point, I mean, those little gigs that I started off doing, I still do to today.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're things that I would never throw away, because they were the stepping stone for me moving on to the bigger things. That's one word of advice I'd give to people: playing as many different musical situations as you can, because that's how you grow, that's how you learn your craft. You learn how to interact with other members of the band, and that's how you develop your style and your sound, and And I think a lot of those experiences for me, because, you know, I'd be playing for, you know, a rock band one week, you know, next week I'll be playing for a Motown band, you know, next week I'll be playing for a pop cover band, you know, so you get in all those different styles of music, you know, and you can draw upon them experiences when you're called into a professional game, you know. So when a pop artist asks you to come in and you're doing a session, it might be a studio session, for instance. I'll never forget, I was called in to do a reggae session. Now, I thought I knew what reggae was. Of course. You know,
yeah, you're gonna get there.
Yeah. Being Jamaican.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but, you know, I tell you, I rocked up to the studio, and the guy played the track for me. And he goes, right, all I want you to do is just such and such. And I was like, okay. But I started putting what I thought was reggae.
Yeah.
And the guy was just like, that's not reggae. What are you doing? You know, obviously someone has recommended me to do this job, and like I've come in there and it's not the right thing. And, you know, he stood there and he actually schooled me in how to play reggae.
Oh my gosh.
It was the most embarrassing thing. But it was a great lesson for me, because it taught me to, you know, my job as a session musician is to kind of interpret music. Do you know what I mean? So if you call me to do a session, I've got to be able to deliver, you know, whatever it is that you're looking for from me, you know. And I came out of that session knowing how to play reggae.
Well, that's a bonus.
You know, it is a bonus, but, you know, fortunately it was with a producer who, you know, kind of liked me, and he was willing to kind of share that information, you know, because another producer would just says, get this guy out of here. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And like, you'd walk out the door with your reputation as well.
Yeah, that's
in
true.
pieces. So it's really important that you kind of learn as many different styles of music as possible, so you're able to kind of deliver. You know, you don't have to be a master of any one particular genre. You know, I mean, I'm not a master of country music, but I know the elements of country music in terms of guitar, what it's supposed to sound like, the kind of riffs that, you know, work in that genre. So if someone asks me to play it, you know what I mean, I've got something to offer. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And and that's the point, really.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really good. I love this. I love learning some good stuff. It's good stuff. So in regards to sort of like the development of your career, obviously you started out with Michelle Gale, and then obviously things developed. How did you, a lot of the guys should know this, but obviously you're the main musical director really for Beverley Knights, and you do a lot of the session stuff for her. How did that come about, and, you know, what was that?
Again,
situation?
that was a recommendation by the same guy that recommended me to Michelle.
Recommendations are key then.
It definitely is a key. It definitely is a key. And I mean, like, so this guy used to call me to do a lot of gigs. But the Beverley Knights thing, when Beverley Knights first came out, she was just like, who's this girl? She's amazing. And it was like, in the industry, it was like everybody wants to play for Beverley Knights, because she's seen as a really, you know, an amazing musical artist.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
She's not just a singer, is she? She's everything.
She's a singer. Yeah. You know what I mean? I've seen her move even the greatest singers to tears.
That's awesome.
Do you know what I mean? I'm talking like Stevie Wonders of this world, you know, your Shaka Khans of this world, you know, they're in awe of Beverley. That's awesome. You know, and for me, it's a pleasure to work with somebody like that, you know. But I was recommended by this guy, and it was only to do one show, and I did one show, and I came off stage, and they were like, look, Bev's going on tour in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, and we'd like you to do the tour. And I was like, well, I don't think I can do it, you know, I'm just coming here just to do a quick, you know, job, and I can't do it. So I speak to whoever, I won't mention the name in case he's watching. And if it's cool with him, it's cool with me. Yeah. You know, anyway, I spoke to him, and he said it's fine. He rang me, he said everything's cool. But then he stopped calling me for shows. He stopped calling me, recommending me stuff.
You stole his gig.
I stole his gig, according to him. But, you know, you're just doing a job at the end of the day, you know, and you just heed the call, you know. But again, recommendations are great, you know, but if I'm going to recommend you to do a session for me, you know, you're in some ways, my reputation's on the line.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? So it's up to you to kind of deliver, you know, on my behalf. Otherwise, no one's going to ask me to recommend anybody again.
Well, they're not going to trust you.
They're not going to trust me for a start. But you know, when someone recommends you to do a gig, you know, you go the extra mile.
Yeah.
You go the extra mile, you know, and for me, that's what I did. You know, I made sure I turn up to, you know, the session knowing what I'm supposed to do, being prepared, having the right equipment, you know.
It's amazing how many musicians don't turn up with all those little things. You're like, really?
Oh yeah, and that's an important point, really. Whether it's a studio session or a live session, you don't be rocking up to a session with guitars that won't stay in tune, or not having the batteries for your tuner pedal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or if you break a string, you haven't got a set of strings. You know, and I say all these things because I've been guilty of it.
Yeah, you learn the hard way.
I've learnt the hard way.
Yeah.
I've learnt the hard way. I remember my very first studio session was with a producer friend of mine, and he was producing an artist, and they had the budget to go and use Abbey Road Studios.
Nice.
Now, Abbey Road Studios, for, you know, well, everybody knows Abbey Road. It's the most famous studio.
Everybody wants to do at least one session there.
Yeah. I mean, I spent 5 minutes just going to and fro on the zebra crossing out the front before I went inside. So,
did you have photos?
No, I didn't. I didn't have photos.
Come on, Paul.
I know. I'm so behind.
You really are.
But I remember we went into the studio and he says, look, you're going to need an acoustic guitar. So just bring an acoustic. I didn't have an acoustic guitar. I didn't have one. You know, so I rang my friend and said, have you got an acoustic guitar? Yeah, I've got one. You can borrow it. I grabbed it. I didn't even look at this thing.
Oh, no.
I just rocked up the studio. The first time I saw it was when I sat down in the studio. And you got to imagine this. The artist was there. The producer was there.
Like, horrified now.
The record boss was there. And the engineers are there as well, and like they're all sitting down, and like they played me the track and says, right, this is what we want. We want you to play this rhythm, and then we want you to double track it and do this. And I'm like, okay, fine. Okay, right. If you get your guitar, we'll set it off. So take this guitar out, unzip it, and then like I pull the guitar out, and like I could see like the strings straight away, just caked in sweat. You know, and just dirt and grimy, and I was like, "This is not going to go very well." So, you know, I had a look at the guitar, and it didn't even have a name.
Really?
It did not have a name. You know, and there was just like a stillness in the room. You know, and I just know that everybody else was just like, "This is unbelievable." So anyway, plugged it in, and it sounded worse than it looked. You know, I was trying to tune it off, and it just was not working. Anyway, the executive producer happened to walk into the room, and you know, I was asking how it was going, and I managed to put some guitar down. And he says, "I like the parts and everything, but the guitar sounds absolutely atrocious."
Yeah.
And you know, my heart just sank. And he says, "Oh, hang on there." He went upstairs and he came back down with this beautiful Taylor guitar.
Beautiful.
He says, like, yeah, use this one, see if this works. So we used the guitar, sounded incredible, did the recording, and it was fine. Went home, and I got a phone call from my friend who called me into the session, a producer friend of mine, and he just gave me a proper dressing down.
Yeah.
He says, Paul, don't you ever turn up to a studio with equipment that doesn't work.
See, although this is like a story, these are huge lessons that you've obviously had to learn. And, you know, many musicians, whether you're a singer or an artist or, you know, guitarist, drummer, whatever, it's these important things that are like so huge. And it's like, I know you've had to go, and I think we all have to go through it. I think I can look back at some of the stuff that I've done and gone, oh my goodness. Yeah. And you have those experiences and you never, ever do them again. Like you never make that same mistake twice. But, you know, the part of this session is that even just by hearing your stories, learn from these examples.
You've got to learn from it, you know. So I mean, like anyone that's listening to this show now, you won't make that mistake because you've heard from me. Do you know what I mean?
Situation to begin.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But you know, be professional. You're being a professional musician, so you're offering a professional service. So you know, your equipment's got to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no excuses. And back then, I mean, like, studio time was expensive. Yeah. You know, you could be paying like £500 an hour. You know, no one wants to be sitting around waiting for you to tune your guitar up for 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Because time is money.
It's true. It's so true.
You know, so you know, when you're called to do a session, you're called to provide a solution. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're called because I can't do it. So it's your job. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So don't be asking me, oh, how do you play that chord? I don't know. I've called you.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So know what your art is and what
That's
you're
huge.
supposed to be doing.
I love it. This is so
Yeah.
good. This is so good. So in regards to people getting a taste of what's it like to be on tour, you know, some of these guys are just starting out. They're just starting out as musicians and artists. You know, it could be both fields that you know, you just want to know what it feels like. And they go to the shows and obviously you see people on stage and we've all had experiences of like something of being on stage, but you know, really give us the ins and outs of what's it like being on tour. I know there's some good parts and some bad parts, but you know, give us what does it feel like? You know, what are the pros to being on tour? Obviously, I know you get to do what you love and all that kind of stuff, but you know.
For me, I love being on tour.
Is it your favourite thing?
Yes, it is, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because for me, it's a holiday. You know what I mean? I can get away.
That's not how you promote it. It's work. No, go on.
It is definitely work, but touring, I mean, like if you're a musician that enjoys live music, there's nothing better than touring.
Yeah.
Because you're getting to play in front of an audience and you're getting an immediate response from an audience.
Yeah.
And I mean, the touring part, when I say it's a holiday, because most of the hard work is before the tour.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's preparing, it's rehearsing, you know, it's making sure you've got the right sounds, it's making sure, you know, all the routines are down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
totally.
so when you actually go on tour, after you've got through the first couple of shows and you know everything works and you're playing everything right and it's sounding great, you begin to enjoy it then.
Yeah, good.
Do you know what I mean? And you can kind of like, not overly relax, because you know every day, you know, for 2 hours you've got to be on your game.
Yeah.
You've got to be professional and deliver a show, because that's what it's about. That's what people are paying their money for.
Yeah.
You know, but it, as I said, the hardest part is the preparation.
Really?
You know, yeah, and I mean, like for me, in terms of being a music director, it's more stressful in the sense that, you know, you're responsible for the musical direction of that show.
Yeah.
You know, and like fortunately or unfortunately, you know, there's been times when you work with some artists who know exactly what they want, or they'll have a show producer who knows, right, we want this, we want that, we want a little musical interlude there, we want a musical interlude there, we want a big introduction. Do you know what I mean? They know exactly what it is, and you've just got to be flexible enough to deliver what it is they're looking for. You have other artists now who's like, well, I don't really know.
Really?
I don't really know. Now, I would put Beverley in that category to a degree, because, you know, Bev's very trusting where I'm concerned.
You've got the relationship. You've been working together for a long time, haven't you?
Absolutely.
So that's probably why, in that sense, she trusts.
Yeah, she trusts me. She trusts me. But, you know, if something ain't quite right or doesn't sit right with her, she'll say.
Yeah. Good.
You know, and, you know, you've got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, don't be kind of, well, this is my idea and it has to stay. No,
Can
it's
you
not.
imagine?
Yeah, and that's another thing. You've got to take yourself out of the equation. It's not about you. You know, you could be the best musician in the world. You know, you could shred for days. You know, but it doesn't matter. You know, your job is to interpret that artist's music. You know, it's not to change it or remix it because you feel like, oh, I could have done it better than that. No, that's not your job. You know, unless they've asked you to do that, then that's different. You know,
that's true. I think that's something that you do really well. Like just even seeing you play, just so subtle, and always when you've done gigs, the feedback that I've got from people is like, oh, he just really interprets the music really well, and you're really sensitive to what people want, which is absolutely, like, it's key. And the amount of guitarists, no offence to all guitarists here, but you sit in a rehearsal room and they're just sitting there twiddling for like hours and you just want them to shut up. It's like, literally, there is just none of that with these guys, which is awesome. So it's cool. So in regards to your career, and you look back, we're going to go on to some tips and helpful things in a bit, but what's the biggest highlight for you? What was your main thing that you think, oh my gosh, absolute pinnacle of my career?
There's been so many, do you know?
Give us a handful then.
There's been I knew you were going to say that.
You know me. I'm like, well.
There's been a few. I mean, like, you know, I've been very fortunate to, you know, to play on some of the biggest stages, you know, around the world, and in the UK, you know. As I said, you know, I remember watching Live Aid, you know, back in 80, whatever it was, and thinking, before a lot of you were born, probably. But you know, Wembley Stadium, the old Wembley Stadium.
Yeah.
It was just like, man, what I would do to play on that stage, not knowing that years down the line, it actually happened.
What did that feel like the first time you stepped out?
It's
Just so we
just-
know, because this is what they want to...
It's just awesome.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. And sometimes you kind of pinching yourself, is this really happening?
Yeah.
You know, and I've always, this is one thing, let me rewind. Always set goals for yourself. Always kind of know this is where I am now.
I love you right now because that's what we've been talking about for the last few weeks, so go on, please do it.
It's massive because it's the only way that you can gauge where you're actually at.
Yeah.
You know, because you start off not exactly knowing what you want to do, but you have an idea of where you want to be in 10 years' time, what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because along the way you can gauge whether you're heading in the right direction or you're not. You know, and I remember saying to myself, I want to play with the biggest artists in the world,
That's
on the
awesome.
biggest stages in the world, whoever that artist might be at that time.
Yeah.
You know, not knowing that, you know, I'll be on stage at the NEC supporting Carlos Santana,
That's awesome.
who's
I
one of
love
my
it.
favourite guitarists.
Yeah, awesome.
And, you know, being on stage, looking down the crowd and seeing Carlos Santana looking at me, and watching me playing, and I'll be like, oh no.
Do you know what? I love this. Do you know what I love even more so? Because you never talk. And this is one thing I love about, I have to say, and I will say this, one thing I really love about Paul is that you can never find out this stuff because he never tells you and you never boast. Like, I remember we've had so many conversations, I've gone, oh, you know, tell me about it. And there's so much stuff that I learn every
Did I
time I
tell
talk
you
to you.
this?
No. So
Oh, wow.
I've heard
I'm
about,
sorry.
like, the Prince one, which is what I was really...
Oh, that's coming. That one's coming.
Sorry, bit of a sneak preview. But... like what I love about you, and this is probably a character thing, that is that I never see you boast, and you, out of anyone I know, could have that position to do that in regards to where you've been and what you've done and who you've worked with. And it's that humility that I love that comes with you because you're professional at what you do. But this is just my little side thing, but you know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that because the amount of times you work with some musicians and they pipe on about, oh, I've worked with such and worked with, and it's the ones that are like trying too hard that kind of you just go, oh my goodness, please just be quiet, you know,
Yeah.
really.
Well,
Like, not in
I'm
a
the
harsh way,
same.
but yeah.
I'm the same. Do you know what I mean? It's like you could be the most incredible musician, you know, but because you've got such a big head on you, your musicality doesn't even matter anymore. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like people don't necessarily buy into what you can do as an artist or as a player or as a musician or as a dancer, but they're buying into you.
Yeah, that's so
You know what I mean? It's like going back to the whole touring thing. You know, if you're not a great person, no one's going to want to be on tour with you for 3 months.
Yeah.
They're just not going to.
Yeah.
They'd rather take someone who's got a lesser ability, but it's going to bring a vibe and can have a laugh with. Because
Yes.
when you're on tour, it's like it's a mini lifetime in a way. Because you could be away for 3 weeks, and it feels shorter than that to us,
Yeah.
you know. But our families, it's like, oh, you've been away for ages. Where you been? You know.
Yeah.
But it's a mini lifetime. So people you go on tour with, it becomes family.
Yeah.
Becomes family.
That's
So
really
like you
cool.
do watch out for each other. You look out for each other. But if you're a bit of a
Yeah.
let's
Not say the word because
yeah,
we're on
if you're
camera.
a bit of a head case,
Yeah.
you know, or not a kind of person that people like, then it's, you know. It's
Well, you're not going to get
difficult.
booked again, are you, really?
No.
Basically, that's
Not
what
at all.
happens.
But anyway, going
Sorry.
back to Carlos Santana.
Yeah, because that was exciting.
Yes,
Go on.
he next day at the next show, when we walked in, he was walking to his studio and like he goes, hey man. I was like, oh hi. I was like, gosh, Carlos Santana's talking to us.
No, I'm picking myself
And
on.
he says, oh, it's great playing last night. I sat and watched you, and I said, I saw you. And I said, you almost put me off my game. And he goes, no, you did a great job. And listen, hey, you know, I always have 2 amps set up on stage. Feel free to come and join me on stage tonight. You know, and I was like, really? Because yeah, absolutely. Just come anytime you want to come on stage. Just come and let my manager know, and you can come on. I was like, I bottled it. I didn't do it.
You didn't?
I didn't
Oh
do it.
my
I just didn't do it.
goodness,
And to this day, it's like, what was I thinking? I should have done it.
You said you should have done.
Yeah, but it was good enough to, you know,
That recommendation.
Get that
I think.
recommendation.
Yeah, that's cool.
and you know, the other major thing was being on stage with Prince.
That is awesome.
And
I
actually
love
playing with Prince. You know, for a lot of guys, I don't know, some people out there will probably know, who the hell's Prince? But you know, for most musicians, he's like,
Yeah.
he's the musician's musician.
Yeah.
you know, and it just came across by chance, to be honest, you know, because we were doing a support thing for him a few years ago. He was doing 21 nights at the O2, and we did support, and again he watched our performance, our meaning Beverley Knights performance, and he was just amazed by it, just amazed by it, and he's like, listen guys, I really want you to come and play at my after show party. You know, thinking that we were just going to be the entertainment. You know, we went up there and we did an hour, you know, just jamming. Just jamming. We didn't have anything prepared, just jammed. And then the next thing we knew, his band were like joining us on stage. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. You know, and then the next minute you could see Prince in the sidelines tuning up his guitar. And I was like, oh my gosh.
This is so cool. Go on.
Oh my gosh. And then he joined us on stage and then it just all goes off. And my claim to fame really is that I always tell people, well, I MD'd Prince. Because like we were playing one of Beverley Knights songs. Yeah. He says, yeah, I want to play that song. So we did the song, and he obviously didn't know the chord changes and stuff like that. And he was looking over at me, and I was like, yeah, C sharp.
Can't believe he told Prince what to do. That's so flipping
cool.
cool.
So that's my claim to fame.
That's awesome.
MD Prince.
But go on, sorry.
Yeah, but to me that was the highlight, one of the highlights, you know, amongst many.
Yeah. What I really am loving is I look at you and, okay, we hear the Birmingham accent, we hear the local lad, and you really are. Local lad started playing in church, and literally you had big dreams. And that's the whole purpose of this, you know, with Imagination, that, you know, I think we're so told not to be inspired and not to have big dreams and not to actually believe in ourselves. And I love this story because with you, Paul, it's the proof that actually, no matter where you come from or what you do, preacher's son, so to speak, you know, I saw some photos. You were a little whippersnapper.
Let's not go there.
But, you know, and it's like you have these big dreams and they can actually happen with the hard work and the application. And, you know, and that's what this time is about, that, you know, you don't just let it pass you by, that you actually see your dreams and go, right, let's do something about it, and not just say, oh, well, next year, maybe, but no, now, you know.
Absolutely. There's another point, you know, because well, you know, I've over the years, I've had this thing of, you know, not being overly confident in what I do, my own ability.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? It's only when I hear other people saying, man, you're an amazing guitarist, you know. You know, and it took me a while to kind of be at one with that, to accept it, do you know what I mean? Because, you know, growing up, I used to listen to other session musicians. You know, I'd read about, you know, certain musicians on the back of a, you know, album sleeve, and I'd be like, man, this guy's playing on everything, you know. And I'd always try and work out, well, why is it he gets called to do all these sessions and not somebody else? But then I realised he's got his own sound. He's got his own style, you know. And like, there was this saxophone player called David Sanborn, and I remember watching Live Aid again, and I was listening to it, and I was like, I can hear Dave Sanborn in that brass section, because he just stood out. He's got a sound that is just so unique to him. And I was like, cameras, just please pan across to see who's playing on the horn section, and there he was. That's you know, awesome. And that was a big lesson for me, because it kind of taught me you've got to have your own sound, something that differentiates you from the next guy. You know, there's nothing special about me. You know, I'm not like a virtuoso musician, but I've got a sound and I've got a style which people are like, right, we need certain, what is it we need? We need Reedy. Reedy knows that's the sound we need. And then like, I'll go and do the session and they'll be like, yeah, we just knew you were the right person for this. That's awesome. And that's a testament, you know, when someone can say that to you as an artist, that means it's job done, you know. And it's about branding, you know what I mean? It's like, Cadbury's is going to taste like Cadbury's. Do you know what I mean? It's like you've got your own sound. It does what it says on the tin, you know. And that's why I can walk into a room with other guitarists like Carlos Santana and not feel intimidated. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not trying to be like Carlos Santana. I'm not trying to be like that guy who can shred for hours. I don't do that. That's not me. Do you know what I mean? But I can groove. I can pocket like
You're a little funky.
Paul Reid. Do you know what I mean? But and I'm confident in that. Do you know what I mean? I stick to what I can do, you know. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, saying, if somebody asks you to do something, there's nothing wrong with saying no. I can't. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's another lesson I learned. I got a call to go on tour with Vanessa May. Vanessa May was like this virtuoso classical violinist. I didn't even know that. I just heard the name. I was like, oh yeah, she's famous. Yeah. I saw her on TV the other day. I got the phone call. It was like Thursday evening. And the guy says, look, our guitarist has let us down. We're going on tour next week, Monday. We've already rehearsed. We need someone to come in and just like do this tour for us. I'm like, yeah, fine, I'll do it. Yeah. You know, tour of America or wherever it was. Like, yeah, I just wanted to get out on tour. Anyway, I walked. I thought, look, right, best get the music together. I went to the shops, brought a couple of her albums, and went back home. Started playing the albums, and I was like, oh, this is classical. I don't do classical. Yeah. I thought, okay, let me play the next track. Same again, and like every track, it was just getting more and more intense, and like I just realised I'm not going to do this gig any justice. Yeah. And you know, it was my professionalism, in my opinion. I just had to ring them and say, look, I'm really sorry about this, but I don't think I'm going to do this gig justice. But then I recommended somebody else who I knew that fits their style, and they did the job, and it's fine. That. You know, so sometimes you have to be honest with yourself, you know, because you've got to protect your brand and protect your reputation.
And that's key, isn't it, really, the reputation, because it is about who you know, and the business is about networking. Yeah, absolutely. And it's frustration when you're trying to get your foot in the door for some of the emerging artists, you know, whether singing, musicians, whatever it is your thing, it's frustrating. But once you do, and when you develop all those qualities that you're saying, it's like you've got to protect your reputation. You do. And it's what, like you say, products we would call branding. It's their image. It's, you know, I get that. That's really cool. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a bit more kind of top tips questions and kind of get into a bit of sort of knowledge to really help. I mean, we've had a lot of advice already come through, and I think a lot of people will be able to see that you've given such great help anyway, just from hearing your experiences. But okay, we kind of talked a bit about this, but what would you say is the most important skill or quality that a serious, dedicated, emerging artist or musician needs to have in order to make it in this industry? What's the quality or skill? Obviously, I know we've touched on some, but you can just refresh. That's totally fine. So what would you say?
Again, I'd say, you know, having your own individualism. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I can't stress that enough, because, as I said before, it separates you. It's the cream that rises to the top at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, if there's something different about you, you know, you'll probably get the job over the next person. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It could be anything. Your sound, your look. Yeah. You know, it's all those things. So be individual. Don't try and be like the other person.
So how would, on a practical level, how do you find that though? And I know it takes time, and that's frustrating for anybody starting out to really hear, because they're like, no, I want it now. You know, how did you find that for yourself? Like, how did it come about?
In terms of my music, I made a point of listening to many different kind of genres. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, if you listen to how I play, there's rock in there, there's soul, there's jazz, there's gospel. You know, there's a whole melting pot of different styles and genres that I kind of draw upon those experiences, you know, and make into my sound.
That's awesome.
You know, if you're just gonna listen to Stevie Vai all the time, you know, or you name the guitarist, you know, if you're just gonna listen to that, you're gonna be a clone of that person, you know, and it's gonna be like, what's the point? That person already exists.
And it's the same for like singers or whoever. If you just listen to that one person or adapt that one style. Yeah. You don't need it.
Yeah.
We don't need
if you're a dress designer, you know, if you're going to design a dresses like another fashion designer, what's the point? Yeah. You know what I mean? You're not going to stick out. You know, so you know, I would say that's an important skill to have.
Yeah.
You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We kind of heard a bit about, obviously, along the way, people who have helped you and been influential in your career. But you know, who would you say those big inspirations, those people that have helped you practically, because, you know, part of Imagination, which we talked about for the last couple of weeks, is that, you know, we have got a huge pool of industry professionals that are working within the different areas that, you know, I realise from my career, it's been really important just to have those people to help me, basically, you know, and help me not only as a musician or a singer or a dancer, but how to market myself, how to, you know, promote myself, how to, you know, even just get my head right so that I believe in myself, those kind of practical things. But for you, who are the big sort of influential characters?
Well, for me, I mean, like, there'd be people you wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, like, musicians who, as I say, I grew up listening to, like, in church, for instance. You know, the biggest advice that I got as a guitarist was from a guitarist that played in church.
Really?
You know, and he just says, you know, when I was starting out, you know, I was trying to play everything, you know. It's like you're playing all the best licks, trying to fit all the best...
everything in 1 second.
Yeah, and the guy's like, you know, you've got a nice sound, you've got a nice touch, but less is more.
Yeah.
Less is more. And, like, that's followed me throughout everything, you know, when I'm putting bands together, when we're trying to create, you know, shows and stuff like that, it's the first thing I think of. It's like, right, let's strip out all of the nonsense and let's get back to what this is about, which is music. Let's interpret the music first, and then we can look about, you know, adding all the fluff, if you like.
The fluff. I love how you put that.
All the fluff.
That's really cool.
But yeah, just, you know, that was one of the best pieces of advice I've had. You know, and the other one was going back to that developing your own sound, because and how I got that piece of advice as well was, you know, YouTube. Everybody knows YouTube. You know, I managed to get access, and Facebook. I got access to session musicians that I grew up listening to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then I realised these guys are regular guys, regular people, regular musicians. You know, they will go and do a gig for like $50 down the road, you know, in an afternoon, just to make a bit more. Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
They will. Do you know what I mean? And you know, I remember emailing this guy on Facebook and saying, like, oh, I grew up listening to you, I think you're incredible, how did you get that sound? You know, and his name's David T. Walker. This guy, he's got to be like 70 odd now.
Really?
Amazing guy. And first of all, he wrote me back and he says, I can't believe that you're actually emailing me and asking me an intelligent question like that, he said. But, you know, he proceeded to kind of tell me how you develop your voice and you develop your sound, and he gave me great advice. And, like, those are things that you can do, you know, at home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, if you know you can get access to, you know, musicians that you kind of, like, respect, email them, network with them, talk to them. You know, you just don't know what that conversation can lead to.
It's so true.
Yeah,
It's
go
really
to
important.
gigs, go to local gigs and meet musicians, you know, and network and, you know, tell them who you are, tell them what you do, you know, invite them to one of your shows.
Yeah.
You know, and you just don't know. You just don't know that little bit of networking could, like, set you on your way.
I love it. There's so much. I'm like, we could talk all day. I love this. Love it. So in regards to, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions which we've got coming through as well. But, you know, sort of like, even if you could give like a couple of top tips of to-dos or not to do, because even that with networking, it's like, there's a do's and don'ts, isn't there? There's a kind of like, you know, you can get some that are so eager when you're like, oh my gosh, get out of my personal space when you're networking with them. And then, but you know, what's the do's and don'ts?
Just be cool. Just be, you know, don't be kind of like, hey, hi, you know, I'm Paul Reid, I'm this amazing guitarist. Yeah, you need to check me out. Here's my chat. Do you know what I mean? Just be, you know, just be yourself and just be, you know, kind of, you know, be more interested. Then, mate, you're in great playing tonight. You know, amazing. Like, you know, how did you get to, you know, how did you get on this gig, for instance? How did you become a musician? You know, so how did you become a professional? You know, and one thing people like to talk about themselves, do you know what I mean? Most people do, you know. So you will get a lot of information, you know. But just be natural. There was another point I was going to say, but I've just totally gone out of my head.
It's because I keep talking. I'm sorry. Interrupting you.
But yeah, networking is important, and
because we were talking about top tips. Does that help?
Top tips, yeah. Practice.
Yeah.
Practice. Know your stuff. Don't get unstuck when you get on a gig, you know, and somebody asks you to do something, and you can't deliver it, you know, because that's just not the time. You know, the minute you say you're a professional at anything, people are going to expect you to know what's what. You know, so practice, know what you're about, have the right equipment, be punctual. You know, be punctual. You know what I mean? Time is money.
I love it.
It's better, I know. I know.
It's fine.
Yeah, for the things that really matter.
I know.
You know.
All right, I've just not got any issues now. It's
The
fine.
things that really matter, be on time. You know, no one's going to shout at you because you've arrived 2 hours early for a session. Do you know what I mean? But what that does as well, it gives you time to like just settle down, have a breather, and prepare yourself. Have a cup of tea, and just be cool. You know what I mean? The worst thing is when you're running late and you're trying to get on the tube in London, for instance, and everything's running late, there's hold-ups, and you're arriving at the studio late or arriving at the TV station late or the session, and you're just sweating, you're just not prepared to play.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So you're flustered.
Cool. So I've got a couple of questions that are coming through from some guys that have emailed in, and also I'll check the Twitter and Facebook feed. But first of all, we've got Lucy, who's a female session musician, which I'm very excited about. Whoop, whoop. And she asked for some tips because obviously, I have to say, the music industry is still a little bit more dominated by men. Not all the time, but you know what I'm saying. So as a girl, you know, she's asking sort of like, are there any tips or how she should be as a session musician in a man's kind of world? Sounds very bad, doesn't it? But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Something that you could apply.
I think female musicians are great. I mean, the few that I know, they're incredible. You know, and like the ones that are out there on the scene, you know, have got there on their own merits because they can play. You know what I mean? If you master your instrument and you can deliver a performance, then I don't see what the problem is really. You know, again, it's about networking, it's about presenting yourself, and you know, just being ballsy, just getting out there.
Tenacity, I love it. It's
tenacity,
good. Yeah, it's true.
You know, and not feeling intimidated at all. You know what you can do, you know what you bring to the table, and you just bring it.
That's really good. I love that. Okay, we've got a couple of people tweeting in. So we've got Holly, who's tweeting. She goes, I'm my worst critic when it comes to singing. So she's a singer. How do you pick yourself up after a bad performance? So if you know you've really...
I'm the same.
I know you are. This is why I'm smiling, because this is the best question. How do you overcome?
Well, you just try and do better on the next gig.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like... You know, I'll come off stage thinking, oh, that was absolutely rubbish. What are you doing? You know, and like people are like, what?
Yeah.
That was amazing. You know, sometimes you can be overcritical. Yeah. You know, and I think it's more to do with me really. Yeah. You know, and I don't know. I guess it's the level that I kind of see myself at being, and I don't feel like I've got there yet. Yeah. So it's not a bad thing really. Do you know what I mean? It's probably the perfectionist.
I think a lot of creatives have that perfectionist in them, which is good. But even like thinking about like if you're on a gig, and I know for me sometimes I'm mid-song, and my head goes, and it's like, oh no, and all you're seeing is like you're hearing the voice of like, yeah, you really shouldn't have done that. That's really bad. And it's like having to silence that voice is. It's hard sometimes, isn't it? Midway
It is
through.
hard. It is hard, but you've just got to push through it.
Yeah.
You just got to push through it, because if you let those kind of, you know, things get to you, then you're just going to be a bag of nerves every time you get on the stage. Yeah. So, you know, you just take a deep breath, just go and do it all over again, but try and do it better next time.
It's true, isn't it? I love it, love it. Cool. Right, we've got another question. This is a question that says, I'm an up-and-coming musician looking for an apprenticeship, I can't speak. How do I go about making the contacts and getting on board with a company? So I know for you, obviously you work with a lot of management companies and things, people like that. You know, how do they make that step? I know it takes time and recommendation and all that kind of stuff you talked about, but is there any tips on how to do that?
It is difficult, you know, when you're first starting out. I mean, you know, when I first started out, there was a lot of agencies that were out there, musical agencies, you know, and there was a lot of session-based, you know, gigs. I mean, like, I was more in the pop industry, you know, and there was a lot of call for stuff like that, you know. But obviously, I joined an agency, and you just you just have to sell yourself.
Yeah.
Make sure you get a really good CV together.
Yeah.
You know, take some really good photos.
Yeah.
Present yourself. You know, and just kind of pitch yourself. This is what I do. I'm available for this. And just pitch yourself to musical agents. And I think, you know, once you've got 2 or 3 bookings, you know, just network with the people that are around you, the other musicians that are on the gig with you. You know, you do a good job, they'll remember you and they'll recommend you. You know, because I don't really use agents that much now, if at all, because, you know, over time people begin to know who you are and, you know, again, recommendations, you know.
Huge important, isn't it?
It's massive.
It's important to get right. We've got a couple. I'm trying to get through as many because we literally have like 10 minutes. So I know the time's just gone so quick. So James has Facebooked in. Hi James, hope you're okay. Also, he has a few questions. So, how important would you say it is to live in London to be successful professional session musician? He's also got any advice for a fellow session guitarist on getting the call for your first big gig, which we kind of just looked at. And there's an opinion on agencies, so that was absolutely perfect. So I suppose the first thing about London, because we've had this discussion, we have had this.
I think it's not the be all and end all. I don't live in London.
No.
You know what I mean? But you know, a lot of my work is in London. You know, but you've got to be able to. If you get a call to do a session in London, you've got to be able to. You've got to know that I've got somewhere to stay. For instance, you know, and be available. You know, it's pointless accepting 2 weeks worth of work, you know, and not being able to get to London. You know, you got to think, right, am I going to drive backwards and forwards? How am I going to get there? How am I going to transport my gear? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things you've got to think about. Yeah, and you've got to think, well, I've got to fund myself for these next 2 weeks. Have I got enough money to do that? Have I got a friend that I can just cotch with for 2 weeks? Yeah, it's true. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not going to be able to get any money until after that 2 week period is over, and then you'll probably have to wait another 2-3 weeks before you get your check. Do you know what I mean? So it's the practical things you got to think about. You got to think, I've got to eat, I've got to park my car, I've got to pay congestion charge. It's expensive. So there's a lot of things. But I mean, like I chose not to go to London because I didn't really feel I needed to.
You're a Brummie at heart.
I'm a Brummie.
But
it's not the be all and end all. It's great because there's a big music scene in London, and I can see why people say that's an option. And yes, if you can do it, but you know, I think if the longer you can kind of network down there and be involved in things without actually making that commitment, you know, I would say take the time because it's expensive to live in London.
It is, yeah. I've been there, done that, and yes, definitely expensive, but it's cool. Okay, I literally probably have time for one more question. So, and there's so many that we haven't answered, so we'll have to tweet back in and let people know. So, when Paul gets nervous, which he must, I can't read this, do sometimes, does he have any strategies to deal with this, especially if like you're kind of meeting either famous people or you're going on stage and it's a huge kind of thing? How do you deal with that, really, basically?
Yeah, nerves. I mainly get nervous in small.
Really?
Yeah, I don't.
You mean like today?
Like today, yeah. I never slept all night last night. No, but I mean, like, you know, I could play on a massive stage in front of 30,000 people, for instance, and that doesn't freak me out at all.
But in the beginning, what was it like? Like, because you've got to have felt some nerves in the beginning.
I'm only nervous if I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
If I haven't practiced properly, if I'm not quite sure of the song, that's when I get nervous because I don't want to mess up. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But when I'm confident in my game and I know what I'm doing, then it's just about performing. Then it's just about playing. I love this. And you know, I mean, like, if I do get nervous, I'll just go outside and just scream, just shout, just let it out. You know,
scary man outside a gig.
Yeah, just find a little quiet time for yourself, and you know, just breathe and just like relax.
Awesome.
You know, take some time out, and then you're only nervous because you don't know what you're doing sometimes, or you just. But remember, you've got to think, well, these people are coming to see me. Do you know what I mean? They've paid their money, so.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, so there's nothing to be scared about.
I love that.
You know.
That's cool. Okay.
They want you to do well.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's true. Okay, so that's kind of all we've got time for, which is like gone so quick.
Yeah, it has.
So just to kind of finish off, is there anything else that you would like to say to anyone before, like as in quick tip or anything before they go? Just to recap, I suppose we've got, I know we said about knowing your craft, know your stuff. Go on, you.
Just be who you are.
Yeah.
Just be who you are. Can't stress it enough. You know, you can only be the best person that you can be. You know, and you know, do the networking thing, and just find out as much as you can about your niche, whether it's fashion, whether it's acting, whether it's music, whatever. You know, just try and be the best at what you can do.
That's awesome. Cool. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been awesome, and thank you, by the way. Like, I feel so inspired. This is wicked. So I hope it's been insightful for you. I hope you've gained something from it. You know, just hearing the stories of what it's like to be a professional musician in the music industry, what it's like to be an artist. You know, this is the time that you can set these goals, guys. You know, we talked about it in the last couple of weeks. The other videos will be coming out soon, so you can learn how to goal set, how to be really clear about what you want to achieve, and know that it can be achievable. And that's one thing, you know, if you take that away today, that you can realise that, you know, small beginnings doesn't mean that you can't have big dreams, you know, and they can't become reality, and that's so important. So thank you so much. Once again, thank you to Walsall Studio School for having us here. It's been absolutely amazing. Guys, remember again, get yourself onto emergination.com now. This is the time that all the industry professionals are actually going to be looking at your stuff and really checking out who you are. So get your stuff on there, get your SoundCloud bites on there. If you're an artist, get your products on there ready to go, because we are going to get ready for stage 2, where you can actually sell your stuff and earn money, which is what we all want to do. So thank you once again. We are here next week with Claire Turner-Marshall. She's going to be talking to you about how to get money, basically. That's the thing. She is an absolute amazing expert on finance, how to raise finance, how to, you know, really generate major streams of income. And she hands up, she's probably been the most influential person in my life in regards to generating an income from doing what I love 24/7. So she's going to be amazing for you to speak to. So spread the word, make sure people tune in, and guys, we look forward to seeing you next week on Emergination. Thank you.